In the spring of 1241, the most feared army on earth was standing inside Europe, and it was winning. In the span of 48 hours, two kingdoms' armies had simply ceased to exist. The road west lay open, Vienna, the Rhine, Rome itself within reach. And then, within a year, the invaders turned around and went home, not defeated, not exhausted by an enemy army, called back, some historians argue, by a death 4,000 miles away. Tonight, the real record of the Mongol invasion of Europe, and the timeline where that message never arrived in time. First, the record. By 1240, the Mongol Empire already stretched from the Pacific to the edge of Europe, under the general So-o-Butai, one of history's most accomplished field commanders, and Batu Khan, grandson of Genghis. Mongol armies had crushed the Rus principalities one by one. Kiev fell in December 1240. Early in 1241, the invasion split. One force, under Baidar and Khadan, swept into Poland. The main army, under Batu and So-o-Butai, drove into Hungary. On April 9th at Legnica, also known as Liegnitz, a combined army of Polish knights, Bavarian troops, and the Teutonic Order met the northern Mongol force. Duke Henry II of Silesia led them. His army was destroyed. Henry was killed. 2 days later, 400 miles away, it happened again. At Mohi, So-Butai's forces annihilated the royal army of Hungary under King Bela IV. Two kingdoms' field armies gone in 48 hours. For the rest of the year, Mongol forces occupied the Hungarian plain. They pushed to the Adriatic coast, chasing Bela, who fled from island to island along the Dalmatian coast to stay alive. There was, at that moment, no field army left in Central Europe capable of stopping them. Here is the hinge. On December 11th, 1241, in Mongolia, 4,000 miles from the ruins of the Hungarian army, the great Khan Urartu, son of Genghis, ruler of the empire, died. The Mongols had built something remarkable for the 13th century, the Yam, a relay of mounted messenger stations that could move news and orders across the empire faster than almost anything else on earth. By some accounts, word of Urartu's death reached the commanders on the European front within weeks to a few months. By the spring of 1242, the Mongol army began a systematic withdrawal from Hungary and Central Europe. It never returned in comparable force. Now, we have to be honest about something historians still argue over. Batu Khan was a senior prince, a grandson of Genghis with a real stake in whoever would be chosen as the next great Khan at the Kur-ul-Tai. That is one explanation for the withdrawal, but it is not the only one. The Mongol war machine ran on horses, and horses need grazing land on a scale most medieval armies never required. Spring thaw turns the Hungarian plain to marsh, and the newly conquered Rus principalities, stretching behind them, badly needed garrisoning and control. We don't know, and honest historians don't claim to know, exactly how much weight the death carried against the logistics. What we know is the timing. The empire's ruler died, and within months, an unstoppable army left a continent it was winning. From this point forward, we leave the record.
The other timeline. The message is delayed. Storms close the mountain passes. A relay rider falls ill. The news that reaches Batu in the spring of 1242 is stale, weeks old, easily doubted. He decides the succession will wait. The campaign continues. Now the reasoning, and we will show ours, grounded in the same constraints that were already shaping the real campaign. This is not a fantasy of Mongol horsemen sacking Rome. So-Butai's own scouts were already probing into Austria and the edges of the Holy Roman Empire in our actual history. This timeline simply lets that probing become a campaign. What they ride into is a Europe already divided against itself. The Holy Roman Emperor Frederick II was locked in an open struggle with the Pope for control of Italy, real, documented, and bitter. A unified Christian response to the Mongols never quite materialized, even in our history. In this timeline, it has even less time to form. The most historically grounded outcome is not the fall of Paris. It is Hungary's fate, extended west. A tributary system, like the one imposed on the Rus principalities, reaching into Austria and the eastern edges of the empire. Cities that submit and pay tribute are spared. Cities that resist behind stone walls face the same sieges that broke Kiev. And here the real logistics reassert themselves, because this is where honest speculation has to stop overreaching. Western and Central Europe, thick with forests and stone castles, is a harder country for a horse-based army than the open steppe and the Hungarian plain. Even in this timeline, the deeper the Mongols push into fortified, forested Europe, the more the campaign starts to resemble a long, costly occupation rather than a clean conquest. But the political shockwave doesn't need a conquered Paris to be real. A Holy Roman Emperor fighting the Mongols on one border and the papacy on the other. A church calling for crusade against the Mongols instead of the Holy Land, something Pope Innocent IV genuinely tried to negotiate around in our own history, sending envoys instead of armies. In this timeline, negotiation may not be on the table. So let's return to the record and be honest about where we stand. Fact: Two Kingdoms' armies were destroyed in 48 hours and the road west was open. Fact: Gade died in December 1241, and the withdrawal began months later. Debated openly by historians, how much of that withdrawal was the death and how much was logistics that were already straining. Speculation, clearly labeled, everything about a continued campaign. That is our reasoning, and you're invited to attack it. Which is the real question for the comments this week. Was Europe saved by a death in Mongolia? Or was it always going to run out of grass and time, regardless? Make your case. Best argument gets pinned. Next week, June 18th, 1815, a late arriving French marshal, 33,000 men marching in the wrong direction, and 4 hours of rain that may have decided who ruled Europe. Subscribe and step carefully. The other timeline is closer than it looks.